Hello, welcome back to school. This is going to be more or less like a overall catch up of what we've done, what we are at, and all this other stuff for the various subjects. I just finished with all my homework, catch up, late work, whatever, earlier this morning, so I'm really happy about that. So now we are, as far as arithmetic, all caught up. Pages should now align correctly, and hopefully, like when we start the next section, we'll be able to more or less plan how many pages I should be doing a week or whatnot, so that I don't fall behind. But yeah, okay, so let's do a recap of where, well, more or less a review of where we're at with arithmetic. So I just did a whole bunch of, like, literally hundreds, and well, it felt like hundreds, but it was probably hundreds and hundreds of problems. So I just did all that catch-up work. When we resume, oh, something happened to my back when I was eating breakfast. So my back actually hurts right now, and it was feeling just fine when I woke up a couple hours ago. So I don't know what happened to it, but something is wrong with my back. Maths. So in class, let me pop this over, show you what's going on. This is a teacher's book. I just usually read through the sections that pertain to the homework just because I find this sort of thing interesting. But it literally is just a bunch of text. I think there's answers in here too, but I don't know. But this book, that's the homework book. This is the book we're working through in class, one of many. The reason I have lots of books is because that repetitious work with different problems and things like that. I find that works really well, is to have lots and lots of repetition. So we're still in, I guess, the unit that covers the number 11. Let me find whatever page we're in. It's not there. Is it here? There it is. Okay, so this is class work that we're going to be working through in class. Usually when we do this sort of stuff, it's a mix of pretty much everything. We'll use, well, now that we got the blocks, we can use the blocks. But in the past, for stuff like this, we've used the chalkboard. I would draw out the little dots and things. But I think now we could possibly use the blocks with these, so that'll be fun. And then story problems, we usually do those orally. Sometimes we do them written. Problems like these, I usually either do them orally or written out on the board. So it's a good mix of manipulatives, oral work, blackboard work, things like that. And we just work through so many pages or until one of us collapses. And then we conclude with, it looks like this thing. This tab, I think, should be over here because this is the section that deals with the number 12. And that's in the new unit that we have not yet started. So that's classwork. This book is homework book for me to work through. So this would be work Oh, I've already done those pages. Here. So this would be work that I'd work on outside of class. I don't know, like I said, I'm hoping that we can actually structure, okay, I want you to do 2 pages this week and 2 pages next week, or something that kind of keep that homework side of things up to date, because I don't think that's something we've always been attentive to, and I'm hoping by taking a little bit of class time before we actually start the lesson, go through the homework book and see, okay, we have 4 lessons, let's try to get through this in 2 weeks or whatever. And I think this section for this book and this other book is probably, it might be about 2, possibly 3 weeks in working through, at least for the class book. So hopefully, you know, I'd be able to do a couple pages here this week and a couple pages next week or something. I don't know. But that is maths. So we're going to stick that. I'll put it over here for now. The cat finally went to bed a couple hours ago. Braille reading and writing. We're still working through this book. Phonics. This is really popular for homeschooling people. I think there's a couple different reading things that are popular with homeschooling. I like this because, 1, there's no pictures. 2, it's very quick. I wouldn't say short, but the lessons are pretty organized. I'm trying to find lesson 13. That's lesson 8. There's lesson 4. Okay. So this is lesson 13. This is a bunch of reading. This is the last homework, or last homework and classwork we did. We did a timed reading in class, but I didn't do one for homework because it wasn't a real big to do. But yeah, so that was the last lesson we did. So lesson 14 is kind of like a review of all the letters and the short A sound. So this is literally just a big list of words. I think, yeah, this is all words. And when we get done with lesson 14, because this is lesson 15, when we get done with lesson 14, we get to move to the first reader. I get to read a reader. I think there's 10 readers, and because they're not marked out in the book, I just wrote them in at the bottom of each lesson that would lead into that reader. So this would be reader 1. Wherever reader 2 is, we'd do reader 2. I would do reader 2. Now, I don't know if we're doing dictation with these, or if I'm going to have to write this out in advance, more or less kind of like as a writing assignment, and then read it in class. And yeah, I don't know. I need to do a brain dump and ask teacher about that. But either way, lesson 14 looks like it's going to be our next lesson. It's going to be for sure a couple weeks long. But yeah, that is reading and writing using Braille. And I hope I didn't forget any of the contractions. Let's see, I'm moving my notebooks around here. Well, this book, now that I'm done with this book, it can go back on the bookshelf. Yay! I like it when I can put homework books back on the shelf. For music, I'm trying to grab these. Okay. For music, currently, we kind of have, while I've been working on my organ stuff in class. We've been working through this little book. This is mainly for teacher to help him understand basic musical nomenclature, if that makes sense. This looks like the back of the book. No, this is the front of the book. Okay, yeah. I think. Yeah. This is the front of the book. So this is a little book that deals with the basic rudiments, reading notation on the staff, and octaves, and time signatures, and key signatures, rhythms, things like that, are all in this little book. And so this is basically to help teacher understand music notation. Not that he has to play it, but at least in a sense of looking at it, he has somewhat of an idea. We have talked about, like, if you were to get like a keyboard, even a simple 60-something, 66 or whatever, 68 keyboard, he would be able to play he would be able to play these concepts. He would be able to play like the half step and the whole step and the different intervals and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's just something we've talked about, and he agreed. Yeah, it would be easier if I actually played around with these, but he doesn't have a keyboard yet. But this is basically for teacher. Currently, we're on lesson 5, wherever lesson 5 is. Because this is an original book, I don't have any pencil markings in here. I don't know where lesson 5 is. Yeah, I don't know where lesson 5 is. But either way, we're in lesson 5, and lesson 5 deals with time signatures. I think it deals with the simple time signatures, if memory serves me correct. Lesson 6 deals with the compound time signatures. So that is what we're doing with music. The cool thing about this is I literally have no homework other than to not steer teacher astray when I'm explaining this stuff. Now, we have discussed about other musical stuff, such as performance. The past several class periods, we have been doing a lot of organ work, meeting at the organ, practicing, doing repetition work on jump keyboards and things like that. So he asked me at one point, I notice you don't play anything fast. And says, well, I don't know how to play anything fast. And he basically says, well, I think I would rephrase that to, I don't know how to play anything fast yet. Because I've never been taught how to play fast stuff. On top of that, I told him that when I play fast, I get tension in the forearms and stuff. And so you can't play fast if you have tension. So this is some area that I was gonna say that he's willing to tackle, but it's gonna be interesting. Basically, we're splitting music class up into 2 parts. We have the first part, which is gonna be working through that little brown book for teacher's sake. And then we're going to have a second part, which deals with more or less like piano stuff, for my sake. And I created like a, what do they call it? Like a file, that has more or less an outline of things, of putting different books, because I have so many different books and different reference materials and all this other stuff. I kind of grouped chapters and sections into different groups like intervals and chords, scales, things like that. So the concept, I think we still need to solidify and talk about things, because the last time we met, teacher was really, really sick. And we almost didn't have class. I was actually very surprised that we did have class. But yeah. So I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit more about this in the coming week, even though it's going to be another week away from maths and reading and things like that, which he doesn't like to do, but he also understands, the importance of talking through things and more or less setting up a plan that's going to work. Because, sometimes we start something and there's no plan and things are just all hectic. But I do see there being a solid plan for reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is important. Now, the musical aspect, that's a whole nother ball of wax, because although we've been working through that little brown book, as far as my application, piano, keyboard, whatever, there has really been no oversight or anything. For keyboard, I have designed like the first section. I'm just going to call it the first section for now, because I don't know what else to call it. But it's basically, it's like okay, let's fill your brain with a bunch of really useful information. Like spelling intervals, spelling chords, I know you guys probably can't see my fingers. Spelling intervals, spelling chords, spelling key signatures, scales, things like this. Being able to, name how many sharps are in the key of F sharp major, or, stuff like that. And the reason that I am wanting to go about this way, filling the brain with a bunch of information, is because currently there's kind of like a twofold thing going on here. One, I can't see the keyboard. And so for me to be able to utilize the keyboard, I need to have stuff in my head to know what it is I'm playing. When I play things on the keyboard, I hear it, but I don't know what it is. Like specifically with chords. I'm playing these chords, but I don't know what they are. The other thing is Braille. If I want to read Braille music, I need to have theory knowledge in my head before I even begin to learn Braille. An example would be with a key signature. If I read a piece of Braille music and it has a flat symbol with the number 6 next to it, or, something, I'm just throwing out example. If it has a flat symbol with the number 6, or a 6 with the number, a flat sign next to it, I forget how it's written out. But either way, it just gives you a number and the flat. I need to know what key that is. I need to know, what those flats are that are in that key. It's going to do me no good if I'm playing the wrong flats, if that makes sense. So, in printed music, a lot of this stuff is basically, you look at the notes or you look at the manuscript paper, the score, and you can see, oh, that's in the key of D flat major. And you really don't need to know how many flats are in that key to deduce that key signature. But in Braille, you need to know that information, because it's just how the Braille code is designed. You have to have theory before you can actually read the music. The other thing is, a good example of knowing theory before Braille music reading is reading chords. In printed music, you just read the chords that are, the notes are stacked on top of each other. But in Braille, you have your base note, or whatever the bottom note of the chord is. And then you have a symbol that represents a 3 and a symbol that represents a 5. It's very much kind of akin to figured bass, almost. You have to know your intervals, both ascending and descending from all kinds of pitches, in order to read chords. And this is just how the system is set up for Braille music. So in regular music, yeah, you can just kind of learn your chords as you're learning piano or whatever. But in Braille, you have to learn them, like not physically play them, but at least have an understanding of what they are in the sense of spelling them, before you can even look at a chord in Braille. Otherwise, you're going to read it and you're going to say, well, this is a C, but I don't know what these other symbols are. Yeah, it's very interesting that way. So these are two reasons that I'm wanting to have a thing before, kind of like a pre-keyboard application section, before we actually do the application section. And for that pre-keyboard stuff, I have a bunch of books here. Let me flip you over. I have a bunch of books lying over here. Some of these are, let me see here. I don't know, this might be a good book. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna, this would be an example. I'm just randomly opening to a page because I don't have none of this marked out. Okay, so here we have a scale. I think these are scales. So this would be like, okay, if we're studying a section on scales. Sorry about the light. My arm is in the way. Hold on. Okay, so if we're studying a section on scales, this is F sharp scale. F sharp scale. Okay. I pick all these really whacked out scales that nobody plays in. Oh my gosh. I guess it's to get my point across. Okay, so pretend we're working on spelling scales. I would need to know how to spell the scale of F sharp. Another good useful information would be to know the order of sharps and how many sharps. So here in Braille, if I were to read this, this would say the number, what is that, 6? And then it would have a sharp next to it. So this is why, I mean, in Braille, I would need to know what these sharps are and how to spell that scale and things like that. So this would be something that we would go through in this preliminary basic music stuff. And it's basically just filling my brain with a bunch of really useful information. Once I have that useful information in my brain, then I could actually go and play around and toy around. But later, in the actual application portion of it, the study of the scales would be more in depth. Other things that I don't know if I have it in the pre part or if it's in the applied section, but I've got a couple books on practicing, which is pretty interesting. This is one of them. I did buy this book by a different publisher a long time ago, but it was like really bad printing. So yeah, this book is actually decent. I had to tape a couple pages together because they were bad copies or whatever, bad scannings that they didn't take out. But overall, this is the book that I got I don't know, 10 or 13 practice commandments that I usually have sitting on the music desk at the organ. This is where I got those from. Another thing, this might be after we actually study theory stuff. Let's see. Here, I think. This is a book I'm thinking we might go through during the applied section in class. It actually talks about piano technique, like hand stuff, arm stuff, exercises that can be done away from the piano and at the piano, basically to learn different piano gestures. And I'm not saying that we'd spend like the whole class period reading this book or whatever, but just reading like a section and working through like the exercise or something if it's actually printed in there. And just so that I have a better concept of what it is that I'm looking at, and that teacher has an understanding of what he's looking at as far as my practicing. He is not a trained musician, but he is doing a phenomenal job at what he is doing. Once we get done with some of that other stuff, I would like to study harmony. Harmony would be way down the road. This is important for improvisation and again understanding chords and all that stuff. But this is a really good book. This is just a really good book. I would recommend this book to everyone, as well as this book here. I'll have to go through and do a highly recommended piano book video. So the other thing, as far as the actual application of piano, I have a couple different books, and this is just a small part of them. This would be when we move from the note spelling of the chords and the scales and all that stuff, to, simple, finding these things at the piano, not necessarily like you're going to play this at like 208 beats per minute, but just being able just to find them comfortably, being able to find the, different C's comfortably, things like that. We would move on to what I'm calling the application applied piano or applied keyboard. This is the best scale book that you could have. This covers everything from your basic elementary introduction to what a scale is, where it came from, all that stuff, to very advanced scale technique, double thirds, sixes, in all the different forms and chromatics, and very advanced stuff with the arpeggios, and I think this is a section that works on velocity. Yeah, this is a book you should get. But this book, when we begin, again, this is looking at this from a blind person's perspective. I can't see the black keys. I can't see the 2s and 3s. I could tell there's black keys there, but I can't see the difference. My biggest frustration is I can't find the B flat. Yeah, so I go, yeah, it's just not good. This section here is probably where we would begin with the actual application stuff after I go through and read all this stuff. This stuff is just generally good knowledge. So I don't know if we'll read that in class or if I'll do that on my own with like a screen reader or something. I don't know. But this here, these are exercises that I did these a long time ago at the organ. But I still had my glasses and I could still more or less make out the 2s and 3s. I would be now going through these really without looking at the keyboard or anything. And really getting the feel for each key signature. So they've got a bunch of these for the majors, and a couple pages later, they have a bunch of these for the minors. And as you're going through these, you are reciting to yourself. Let's just pick an example here. B minor, 2 sharps. Oh, that's not too bad. So you'd have B minor, 2 sharps, and you'd be just reciting that to yourself as you're going up and down the scale with 2 fingers. You're only using, I can't do this, 2 fingers, and once you go up one scale, down the other with the 2 fingers, you switch to the next 2. You go up and down. And you do that with each hand. I don't know if these are done. No, these are not done together. Basically, you do like your left hand and your right hand, or your right hand and your left hand. So that's one portion of like the applied. Later, I'm not sure how I actually wrote all this out. I gotta print off the thing when I get time. This covers all about the thumb crossing, which is really important for scales and arpeggios. So going through this section, trying to make that as smooth as possible without killing myself. And this is what do they call this? These are scales. These are just 1-octave scales. These are 1-octave scales. I think these are broken up into different families or classes or something. So I take like a couple scales at a time as I'm working through them, so that way I'm not having to learn all the scales all at once, but taking like, say, C major and G major and just working through that way. I do know Chopin would start with B major, but I don't have that concept written out yet. But either way, B major would be a better scale because it actually fits the contour of the hand. There's a couple different videos that talk about that on the internet. You could search into that. So then after I learn like just the basic scales, again, this is just learning how to play a scale. We're not working for speed or anything glamorous. We're just learning how to play a scale. This would be, all this front matter would be the equivalent of like learning arithmetic facts in mathematics, or learning phonics in reading. So this is very basic scale knowledge stuff. After I would learn the scales and the cadences, I would then move into the more traditional scales. This would be going up 2 octaves. Obviously, I could do 2, 3, 4 octaves, and working through that way. And then I would just continue the rest of the scales, like, however I have it listed out in my syllabus. I would also be working through arpeggios, chords and arpeggios. These are your chords and broken chords, and then your grand broken chords or something, and then your arpeggios in the different inversions. These are not going to be fun. I can tell you already, these are not going to be fun. I did not like doing those in university. I did not like practicing them preparing for university, and I most likely will not enjoy doing them today or nowadays or whatever. So that is pretty much that. There's a lot of different there's a lot of different what I'm calling levels in here. So this book would actually cover a lot of different stuff, and for like if I'm working through a section, I'm not going to be like jumping all around in this book. I'm just going to be like working on a section, and then once I complete that section, I'd go back and I'd repeat it throughout the cycle of the piano course or whatever it is that I'm working through, because I have some other stuff that I'll be working on as well. So this is primarily scale, like technical stuff, technique stuff. I have a section to work through as far as drills and etudes. These first 2 sections are more or less to fulfill my piano teacher's request that I play scales and finger drills and etudes every day. Yeah. So this is also to again have short pieces that I can easily memorize. That's not 30 pages of music of you know, advanced graduate level piano stuff. And the thing is that you know, not having that theory knowledge, it means memorizing is going to take all that much more longer because I don't have the theory knowledge to just apply. But hopefully by working through this book, because I will have already spelt the different chords and the different scales and all that stuff, I will be able to look at, let's say this guy here. I don't know what, okay, this is number 4. I will be able to look at these measures and say, oh, that's a C major chord. Oh, that's a C major chord. Oh, that's a C major chord. I don't know. I'm thinking that might be a dominant. I don't know. But being able to look through, let me find something a little bit more interesting. Here. Okay. Being able to look through stuff like this. Okay, so here we got, this is, I think that's a C major. That's a C major, C major, C major. I think that's an F major. I don't know. But yeah, so being able to look through these and see, okay, this whole left hand for the first 3 bars, 4 bars, is a C major Alberti bass. And then, I mean, the analysis would be done before I go to the piano. The idea is to learn the analysis or be able to apply the chord knowledge and stuff that I spell to the analysis of the actual music, and then taking that information, taking it to the piano and applying it by, you know, the physical playing without having to look at every individual note. I would have an idea, okay, I've got 4 bars of C major, I got 2 bars of F major, then it goes to a dominant. You know, having that information already in my head would reduce my eye strain of having to look at every individual note with, you know, memorizing. So these books, although I'm not going to want to write in them, more than likely, I may have to write in them, at least as far as understanding the harmonic stuff and memory work before I actually take this to the piano. And this is basically preparing, although I'm using printed notation, when I learn Braille music, the concept is going to be no different. I'm going to have to look at the notes. I'm going to have to basically understand what's going on, memorize it, and then take it to the piano and play it. If I'm sitting at the piano and I'm feeling Braille and I don't know what a specific note is or what a certain symbol is, it's going to take all that much more longer for me to play the piece. So the idea is to get all of that information, you know, put in my head before I actually do the physical playing of the pieces. That's what this book is for. In addition, there's books, I mean, obviously, I think this book has scales in it, so I will more than likely be running into scales that we're not covering in that other book, but because they're in this book, you know, I guess it's not going to hurt me, especially if I haven't done it for 10 years or so or whatever. This here is what I'm calling a lesson book. This is an old school lesson book. This book is basically this is a main, to have more of that theory knowledge, but it's also just to have different repertory that I've never played, to complete projects and assignments, as far as actually finishing stuff. So that's kind of like what this book is going to be for. And again, it will cover scales and things. It has a boatload of finger exercises, which I'm not too thrilled about, but yeah. So the interesting thing about this book, or books similar to it, I've got a couple of these old school books. These books will actually cover more material than what you would get in like an Alfred adult course or Faber and Faber Music Land books, whatever. The modern piano books that we have nowadays go extremely slow. Very, very slow. These books like this, and even this, even Czerny's books, they don't wait around for you. Oh, you don't know your C major scale. Well, tough. We're moving on to G major on page 2. Well, not really, but either way, these books progress really fast. And because I have already, like, all this piano experience that I've already done, just, you know, memorizing stuff, being able to take a step back from actual repertoire, working through things, smaller pieces like this, hopefully will be a little bit more of a benefit as far as acquiring the technical aspect of things that I need, and acquiring the, you know, the fluency of just the tactileness of the keyboard geography, if that makes any sense. Working through the, you know, playing pieces without having to wonder, am I going to land on the right note? Being able to do that with these hopefully will help with a lot of this informational stuff that I'm needing. So that pretty much concludes where we are, what we're doing. Oh, I almost forgot. In addition to the piano scales and Czerny and stuff like that, I will also be working on more or less longer term pieces for, you know, just actual repertory. I have an organ piece that has literally 2 notes in the pedal board, but all the rest of it is literally just like finger work. I have that, and then I also have an etude by Kramer that I played a long time ago. And the neat thing, I was kind of playing around with the etude at choir, and I was noticing, yeah, this is going to require like wrist circles or something like that. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how all that works together. And again, a lot of this is basically, the longer term pieces are just to give me a long-term project to work on and to help facilitate what teacher has mentioned about, you don't play fast, you need to play fast type material. So hopefully that will help in pleasing him, as far as getting fingers moving a little bit quicker than they are currently, and still not, you know, working on Liszt etudes or Chopin etudes or whatever, because I don't have the technique for that. But yeah, so that is pretty much what's going on. I need to get my music over at the organ, number it. I need to figure out, I might see if, I don't know if we're going to do this in class or not, but set a guideline post. Currently, I think I have Thanksgiving, but I don't know. Set a guide post for when to actually have this stuff learned or whatever. I don't know. But I've got a couple other items I need to write in my brain dump and talk with teacher about. But other than that, that's pretty much like a complete update of where we're at as far as the other subjects, maths and reading and Braille and stuff like that, and what's happening with music. It seems like there's going to be a lot more homework going on as far as music study goes, which I won't be able to wiggle out of practicing like I was able to over the summer. Speaking of wiggling out of practice time, teacher wants me to play through my repertoire once a week. So I will have to make a list or put something together as far as preparing that, so that I have a list that I remember. I also know this piece, so that I don't learn my music in vain. So I will probably throw that together real quick, run off and print it off at the library, and then I'll just manually write in the pieces, or maybe type them in. I don't know. But right now, to be honest, it's just the 2 pieces that I played on Sunday. So it's nothing real extravagant. I do have to go over to the organ and pick up my music, so I might just run through the pieces just to check that box. So yeah, we might be at the organ later today. But in general, I think it's just kind of like a, play for your own enjoyment, make yourself smile type thing. So yeah. So that pretty much concludes everything that we've got going on. If I don't know where the school bell is. I think I lost the school bell. Yeah. I lost the school bell. Oh no. Does anybody see this? Oh, I think I see it. I think I put it in the cat toys. Yep. So if you want to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget, ring the notification bell for all notifications.